Today we have come here to do Hanumana's puja. Shri Hanumana is a great character in our being. And he runs all the way from Swadhisthana to your brain. And he supplies all the necessary guidance we need in our futuristic planning or in our mental activities. He gives us guidance and protection. As you know that Germany is a place where people are very active, very right-sided, use their brain too much, and they are very machine-oriented also. It is very surprising how a deity like Shri Hanumana, who is an eternal child, because he was like a monkey, his head was that of a monkey, if not of an elephant. So he was an eternal child, and he was the one who was used to run the right side of human beings. He was told that you must control the sun to begin with. He has to control the sun, that the sun in the people, if there is too much sun, then he must try to control it and make it cooler or smoother. So he was a child after all. So as soon he was born, when he knew that he has to look after the sun, he said, why not eat it off? So he ran up the Virata's body and ate up the Surya. There he had to be told, no, you have to control him. You don't have to put him inside your stomach. Because he thought that this sun will be controlled better if he has it in his own stomach. So the beauty of his character is that he's a child. And the childlike behavior of Shri Hanumana has to control the right side. If there's a right-sided mother or a right-sided father. Normally, right-sided people don't get children, normally. They're over right-sided, then even they get children, but they're really not liked by the children because they have no time for children. They all the time are very strict with the children. They shout at them, they don't know how to handle the children. Or they are over-indulgent because they always think that I never got this, so let me give it to the child. So these extreme type of people who are right-sided have got this Hanumana who is nothing but a child. He is very anxious to do the work of Sri Rama. Now Sri Rama is a character, I would say, which is full of balance. Absolutely. He is the benevolent king, which Socrates has described. So he needed somebody with him all the time to do the work or to supply him or to help him, like a secretary you can call him. And Shri Hanumana was the one who was created for this purpose. Now, Sri Rama was such a assistant. I mean, you cannot have such a word for him. You can say such a servant of Sri Rama. Even the servants, you see, don't have that much of dedication for their master. You can say like a dog or a horse, but that also doesn't have. such dedication for Sri Rama that by the time he grew up, he got now 9 siddhis, Navadha siddhis. 9 siddhis he got. These siddhis are like this, that he could become big, he could become so heavy that nobody could lift him. He could become so sukshma that nobody could see him. He could become so subtle that nobody could see him. There are 9 siddhis that he got. So a person who has got the right side too much in him, he controls him with these 9 siddhis. Now, how will he control a man who is running very fast in his life? What he does is to control his movement. He makes him in such a way that he has to put down his speed. He makes his feet very heavy. Now he can't do that much. Or he makes his hands very heavy. So the person cannot work very much with his hands. So he can give a tremendous kind of a lethargic heaviness to a person who is a very right-sided person. He has got another siddhis, which are very interesting, is that he can extend he doesn't have many weapons, he has only one gada in his hand. And he can extend his tail to any extent, and he can handle people with his tails. He does not have to use his hand. Sitting down here, he can put the tail around anywhere. If he wants, he can just make a mountain of his tail and sit on that. Like he has all these monkey tricks, as you call them, you see. And all these things he has within himself is to control a person who is extremely right-sided, to begin with. Then he can fly in the air. Just he doesn't have any wings, but he can just fly in the air. That means he can become so big that the amount of air he displaces has a much more weight than his own weight. Just the same principle Archimedes, if you know the Archimedes principle. That he becomes so big that his body starts floating in the air. Like a boat, you see, you can call it. And he can fly in the air. And by flying in the air, he can carry the message from one to another through the ether. Now the subtle of the ether that we have is under the command of Shri Hanuman. He is the one who controls, or is the lord of this ether, the subtle of the ether, or say the causal of the ether, and through it, it communicates. All the communications that you find, like we have within ourselves also ductless glands, which a pituitary is using, ductless glands, is through Hanumana's movement. Because he can go into a nirakar, he can go into a formless state. Also the communications, for this communication that we have, maybe we can say that we have got a loudspeaker. But we have a television, we have got radios and all those things. Where we catch on to the ether anything is all the blessings of Hanumana and are available to people who are right-sided. Only the right-sided people discover these things of the space, which we call as a cordless telephone or a thing we have also telegraphs and where we don't use any wires. So without any connection, through the ether, he can manage. So all the ethereal connections has been done by this great engineer, Shri Hanumana. And it is so perfect, it's so perfect, that you cannot challenge it and you cannot find faults with it. Maybe your instruments may not be all right, but as far as his ethereal work is concerned, he is perfectly there. Now the scientists discover it and think that it is in the nature, but they never think, how can it be? We say something in the ether, and how is it is received on the other hand? They just take it for granted that it is so, that we say something here or we relay something on the television and it is seen the other side. But they never even think or search out how it is done, what is the way. And this is what is the work of Shri Hanumana, who has done such a beautiful network. And through that network, all these things work out. So, even on the right side, the vibrations we get in the molecules, as you know that we get molecules like sulfur dioxide. If you have the sulfur has 2 oxygen, and the oxygen goes on pulsating like that. They are isometric, symmetric type of vibrations. You all must be knowing about it. So all these things, symmetric and isometric vibrations, are created by whom? Nobody wants to know. Nobody wants to find out. Because after all, in an atom or so imagine in a molecule, that deep, who does that job? Is done by Sri Hanuman in his subtle ways. So he has another great siddhi, which we call as anima. Anima, anu means a molecule, and that means it can enter into a molecule, or renu is the atom. It can enter into molecule or into atom. Now many scientists think that they are in the modern times they discovered the molecules. It's not so, because it's already in our old scriptures description of anima is there, is of anu, renu is there. So it's already described there. Now, then wherever you see the electromagnetic forces working, it is worked through Hanumana's blessings. He is the one who creates electromagnetic forces. So now we can see that as Ganesha has got the magnetic force in him, he is the magnet. He has got the magnetic force. Then we can say the electromagnetic is the one which we call as Hanumana's force, on the material side of it. But from the matter, he goes up to the brain. So he rises from Swadhisthana up to the brain. So in the brain also, he creates the co-relationships of different sides of our brain. So how much he gives us? I mean, we can say if Ganesha gives us the wisdom, then he gives us the power to think. He protects us also, that we should not think of bad things. That is, we can say that if Ganesha gives us the wisdom, then Shri Hanumana gives us the conscience. I hope you understand the difference between the two. Wisdom is where you do not need conscience so much, because you are wise, you know what is good, what is bad. But conscience is needed in a personality where he is to be controlled. And that control comes from Shri Hanumana, which is the conscience in the human being. Now this conscience, which is Shri Hanumana, is the subtle form of him, which gives us, is in Sanskrit called as Sat Viveka Buddhi. Means Sat means truth, Asat means untruth, and Viveka means the discrimination, and Buddhi means the intelligence. So intelligence to discriminate between the truth and untruth is given to us by Shri Hanuman. In the Sahaja Yoga system, if we say that Ganesha is the one who gives us, he is the Adhyaksha, means he is the, I call him as the Chancellor of the university. He is the one who goes on degree to us. Now you have crossed this chakra, that chakra, that chakra. And he helps us to know that what state we are in. So the Ganesha gives us, say, Nirvichar Samadhi, which we can call it as the thoughtless awareness, and Nirvikalpa Samadhi. He gives all that, and also he gives us joy. But the understanding that this is good, this is for our benevolence, mental understanding comes to us from Shri Hanuman. And it's very important for Western people, because it has to be mental, otherwise they won't understand. If it is not mental, they cannot come into abstract. It has to be mental. And so the mental understanding of whether it is good or bad is given to us by Shri Hanuman. Without him, even if you become a saint, you will be, of course, you are a saint and you will enjoy the saintliness. But whether this saintliness is all right if you live on Himalayas, or is all right when you go across to people to give them realization, all this scanning, this Viveka Buddhi, all this scanning, all this discrimination, all this guidance, all this protection is given to us by Shri Hanuman. Germany being a country which is very, very much, I should say, an essence of right side. And because of it being such an essence of right side, it's important to get the protector of right side here worshipped. But in all that, Viveka Buddhi, in that discrimination, he knows one thing, that he is absolutely subservient to Sri Rama. Now what is Sri Rama? Sri Rama is the benevolent king. He works for the benevolence. And Sri Rama himself is a formal king, like Sankocha we call it. I mean, English words are not so good to explain, but Sri Rama is the one who is, who will not push forward himself. He keeps back. He's very balanced. He's a very poised person. So the Hanumana, you see, he is the one who is always anxious to do the work of Sri Rama. Always. If Sri Rama says, all right, you go and get the, he told him, go and get the Sanjeevani, is the kind of a herb that was needed to bring Lakshmana to life. He went there and he brought the whole mountain with him. Now better have it. It's like that sort of person. You see, so he brought that's childlike behavior of his. And the discrimination in this is that if Sri Rama has asked for, whatever he asked for, I'll do it. So is a relationship of a, I would say like a guru and shishya. But even more than that the shishya is just like a subservient servant, absolutely surrendered to God. Absolutely surrendered to God. And his main theme is surrender. Now see, this surrender itself shows that all those who are right-sided people are surrendered to God, not surrendered to their bosses. Mostly all those right-sided people are very surrendered to their bosses, surrendered to their jobs, sometimes surrendered to their wives also. But they are subservient to wrong people. They have no discretion. You'll always find that. They have no discretion. But if you take the help of Hanumana, then he tells you that you have to be surrendered to God Almighty and not to anybody else, or to your guru like Rama. Otherwise you are not to be surrendered to anybody else, and then you are a free bird and you have all the 9 powers within yourself. Hanumana's whole thing is to antidote your overactivity, to antidote your too much thinking, to antidote your ego. Now, how he finishes the ego of people is very sweetly shown when he burnt the whole of Lanka, is the capital of Ravana, and the way he made fun of him. Because, see, anybody who is egoistical, one must make fun of him, then he is all right. Like first he went and when Ravana saw him, he said, "Who are you?" The monkey. So he just pushed his tail towards him and tickled his nose with his tail. So he is the one who makes fun of egoistical people. Now if somebody egoistical tries to trouble you, he is the one, he'll make such fun out of him that you'll be amazed how this fellow was jumping like a Humpty Dumpty has fallen down and has broken his crown. So, see, it is the job of Hanumana to protect you from egoistical people.